What's up, Duke? What's up, Briggs? All right, everybody. I want to spend a few minutes. I want to continue on this topic of cost per day versus cost per mile. Outcast, how are you, man? I want to spend a few minutes today. I want to talk about this. These guys have been going at it for hours. Hey, Duke, knock it off. For hours, and they spend 30 minutes. They spend 30 minutes not barking. And I thought, oh, cool, I can come out and we can have this conversation, but apparently not. Yeah, woof. Anyways, I want to spend a few minutes. I want to continue on this topic. I've seen a lot. What's funny, it's not like this is the topic to talk about, right? This is the topic to discuss, whether it's cost per day or cost per mile, all that sort of stuff. And I want to talk about some of the details, because what I've seen is really simple. What I've seen is not many guys want to talk about any details. They want to talk about things at a really high level. The guys that I have seen, so some of you guys, some people have sent me links to other videos to watch and what have you, in your continued frustration or approval, right, or disapproval, just kind of depends. Some of these guys are running numbers, and it doesn't make any sense. And I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense, and I want to get into some of the details about it. So let's bear with me. Let me see if I can pull this up so I can see some of the questions. All right, do you own a job or do you own a business? And it's really that simple, right? When you cut it down to the basics, it is that simple. It's one or the other. We've all been in situations. We've all had a job that owned us, right? We've all had those. But this is a situation where if you're in trucking, if you're in transportation, do you own a job or do you own a business? If you're an owner-operator or a lease operator, then you got to pick one. And what I see a lot of these other guys that are advertising cost per day is the way to run your business, in my opinion, for crying out loud, hey, knock it off. In my opinion, when you decide to run transportation as cost by day, you have a job, and that's it. Here's the thing. I'll give you let's start with a simple baseline. Okay, simple baseline. Let's define a job, and let's define business. So let's go to the dictionary. Okay, a job. This isn't my opinion. You can look it up. It's a job is a piece of work, especially a specific task done as part of a routine of one's occupation. A business is defined as that which a person is principally and seriously concerned, and or two, the sale and or exchange of goods and service in an attempt to make a profit. Did you hear the difference there? Because there was a big difference. One has the word profit in it, and the other doesn't. It just doesn't. When you try to run trucking as a lease operator or an owner operator, if I go to the authorities, if the authorities are these other YouTubers, or for that matter, even if they aren't a YouTuber, they just comment and they say cost per day is the way to do this. You know, the one thing that I've heard consistently in their message is this word: survive. I've heard that word in virtually every one of these other videos. Survive. No, I didn't see that, Wesley. Guys, if you're out here to survive and that's it, that's a really horrible way. God, hey, knock it off. It's a really horrible way to go through life. It just is. It just is. The difference between a job and a business is where you're looking to attain profit. When I watch these other guys run through their examples on their videos, they take their personal side, their home expenses, and they take their expenses on the business side, and these guys are adding up like 3 or 4 or 5 line items on both sides. Well, that's interesting. I got a whole lot more expenses on the personal side. Even if I try to break them down into big categories than just 5, I've got a whole lot more than just 4 or 5, even if they want to break them down into subcategories. Lights and sirens, welcome, bud. So when you understand that the distinction between a job and a business is that key word of profit, then you begin to understand how you need to run your business. Think about the first definition of business, that which a person is principally and seriously concerned. I'm gonna tell you right now, look, here's the other thing. Unless you're somebody that I know, an employee, or someone in my life, family and friends that I love, I don't care about your feelings. And even those people that I do love would argue that I may come across at times not caring about their feelings. So I don't care about your feelings, right? So if you're here to get pat on the back and get a blue ribbon, you're in the wrong channel. If you want to talk about business, you want to talk about profit and how to be more successful, then maybe you're at the right spot. It's really that simple. Do you own a job or do you own a business? Because when you're taking the approach of, good God Almighty, they're having a great time. Here's the, hey Duke, knock it off. Yeah. Cents per mile, right? Here's that other word. I hear that word thrown around, cents per mile. That is different, guys, than cost per mile. I've had guys come in and say, oh, blah, blah, blah. Here's the other example, right? Somebody was talking the other day about, oh, I wouldn't take this load, right? When I did that video where the guy was talking about weight on the load, okay? When you're talking about the weight of the load, and they wanted to use an example of A to B. It was the same run, right? He gave the exact same run. Guys want to come in and they want to get all emotional because they don't know how to track their cost per mile. So they try to do things really simple and really basic. And that's the other thing these guys say is here, you can do it really simple and really basic. And to some degree you can. This is not rocket science. Having said that, there's a big delineation between cents per mile and cost per mile. And I'll explain that in a minute. Because cost per mile is going to give you a really detailed analysis of your business. And my question, I swear, I'm going to kill somebody. I don't care which one it is. I'm going to kill one of you. Knock it off. There's a really big difference, a really big delineation in cents per mile and cost per mile. These guys want to talk about, hey, look, it's going to depend on weather, it's going to depend on terrain, it's going to depend on all this stuff, whether or not I would take this cheaper load or the one that's more profitable. It shouldn't, right? Because again, if you watch this video, the analogy was the same run, one is lighter and pays less, the other one's heavier, so you have to run the formula. And guys are coming in and saying, oh, I would take the one that is less profitable. Let me revert back to the definition of business, that which a person is principally or seriously concerned about making or attempting to make a profit. I would argue that those guys have a job, not a business. When you start looking at facts, okay, not opinions, not emotion, facts, it gets really simple really quick. So I asked these guys some of these questions. Hey, if you're going to run cost per day, how do you determine if you're running on a tollway? Do I take the tollway and pay the $100, $120 for tolls, or do I go out of route, X number of miles? How do you factor that? Ooh, that's a stumper. Yeah, it's a stumper because you don't have the answer, because you don't know. You can't do the math equation, the very simple math equation, if you don't know what your cost per mile to run that truck is. So then the argument becomes, well, cost per mile is great for big carriers. How do you think big carriers got to become big profitable carriers? Because they track things to the penny. They are attempting to make a profit. It's not about just a job for them. They take it serious. God, these knuckleheads. Duke, come here. Come here. You want to say hi to everybody? You want to say hi before I kill you? Hey, Colin now. So it really gets back to how do you accomplish the task of doing really basic things like determining like determining whether or not you want to run tollways. Well, if, oh my God, hang on. Dude, come here. Dude, come here. Dude, stay. There's always one. There's always one troublemaker in every crowd, and we didn't eliminate the troublemaker, we just moved into a different location. When you can't start doing those basic things, guys, relative to determining what your cost per mile is, how to run your business more profitable. For example, if you don't know what your cost per mile is, it's really hard to figure out the formula for whether or not one load is lighter, what the fuel mileage difference is on the lighter load versus the heavier load. Can't figure that out. John, I swear. Well, here's the thing. So that's why I want to start at a baseline. Baseline is the definition of what's a job and what's a business. Okay. And so it's really that simple. So if we all come from that baseline, the next thing we need to understand is what are your individual abilities, and it's different for everybody, to be able to run that business, right? To be able to get into the details and determining whether or not you're running a profit or not. And that's not hard, but some guys don't have the skill sets. I get that some guys don't have the skill sets to create an Excel spreadsheet, and you can do it on paper. It's just a little bit more complex. It's a lot easier to pay somebody to create the spreadsheet, put the formulas in that you can continue to track every day as you go. Once you do that, it's a hell of a lot easier, guys. It's a lot easier. Here's the other thing that these guys talk about. They talk about their maintenance fund, but what's funny is they talk about their maintenance fund in cents per mile. But wait a minute, I thought you only wanted to talk about cost per day. Well, I mean, except for maintenance, you should carve out maintenance as a cents per mile. Why? Because they can do that math really easy. How many miles is this trip? 500 times 0.0 whatever cents per mile that they want to put into an account for maintenance. Unless you are the guys that say you don't need a maintenance fund. That's a whole different video, and that was posted 3 days ago. You got to understand that cost per mile is cost per mile. Cost per day leads you to having a job. I'm just going to tell you, again, I don't care about your feelings. If you're trying to run the business from the standpoint of cost per day, you own a job, you don't own a business. When you want to focus seriously on your profit and get into the details of the numbers, that's where it matters. Here's another thing, cost per day. Let me ask this question, because I can play this game all day long with these guys, but nobody wants to come on and have this real conversation. They want to talk about emotions and they want to talk about big round numbers. Let me tell you why it doesn't work. One of the things that's a killer for you guys is fuel mileage. If you're not tracking that fuel mileage on a cost per mile basis, it gets really blurred. How can you tell how you can improve and how much fuel is costing you? Oh, well, but I break that out separately. Okay, so you're gonna break that out separately. That's fine. You're gonna carve out maintenance on cents per mile. You're gonna carve out your fuel mileage separately. You're gonna carve out all these sorts of things, and it just begins to get silly. It's like, why not just do it the right way? Why not just go and do cost per mile the right way? At some point, stop trying to blend all this together and get a vague answer. It's silly. For the guys that want to run cost per day, you know what they want to do? They want to load their personal costs into that daily rate. Guys, just keep it simple. Pay yourself a salary. Pay yourself a good salary. Don't do what they all say and suggest in their video, which is survive. It's not about surviving, or it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Get your cost per mile. Treat your business like a business, not like a job. Allocate a salary that you want to make. And again, that's really simple. If you're going to drive 100,000 miles a year, you want to pay yourself $60,000. That's 60 cents a mile. You want to make 70,000? Guess what? It's really easy. Add 70 cents a mile into your cost per mile spreadsheet. Here was the other thing that these guys got so emotional about that they couldn't answer. They couldn't answer some of this stuff, right? And it really boils down to is because they don't know their cost per mile. So carve out that salary for yourself. That's a way for you to know I'm not going to just survive. And then, you know, when it comes down to bidding your rates for, you know, a 2-day run or whatever, you know what your rate is. You know you're going to ask whatever the market rate is, but you know how much right then on that load you're going to make. I'll give you another example that's happening to us right now. Driver made some really boneheaded decisions. He missed his delivery time. Okay, if we were running on a cost per day as a company, as a business, and we booked that load for a 2-day run, well, guess what happened? It took 8 hours to get loaded, really long time to get loaded. It had an issue with a tire. That took 3 hours. They rescheduled the appointment for 24 hours later. The driver still wasn't able to make it. Now guess what? They rescheduled again for another 24 hours. Guess what? We just booked a rate per mile, or excuse me, per day for what we thought should have been a 2-day run. It's going to end up being a 4.5-day run. How'd that work out on your cost per day? Really bad. That's the example. When you lose sight of that, so guess what? So we lost money. That guy in the cost per day, we're going to lose a lot of money. In fact, he lost money and cost, either way you look at it. You can't, what happens is 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks from now, you forget about that loss that you incurred. And you get right back. What happens when it happens again and again and again? You lose track of that stuff. When you put it in a spreadsheet and you factor your cost per mile, you don't lose track of that stuff. Shadow Wolf had a good 2 videos about it. And go to his channel, check out his videos. But in essence, basically what he said was, for 2 years I ran my business that way. And then he got into a really bad financial bind because he was running cost per day. And then he said that night, when he realized how bad of a financial bind he was in, he then became a businessman and he started to run it cost per mile. The other argument these guys made was, hey, this light load, right? I don't want to run cost per mile. I want to run cost per day. And I'm going to run this load that's not as profitable. And the reason I'm going to do it is because it's going to be more wear and tear. And how do you factor that? It's really simple. When you don't know your business and you don't pay, what was the words? When you are not principally and seriously concerned about your business, you don't know how to factor maintenance. Like that one gentleman said, Chris, HT Logistics, I think. Well, I have some money and I just had a big expense, so I won't have another one. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Other guys come in and say, well, it's, you know, I don't know. I'm just, you know, I make money, right? I make money. It's all good. Guess what? It's really simple how to factor in wear and tear. It's already included in your cost per mile. Cost. Anything that costs you money goes into cost per mile spreadsheet. Tires, in there. Tolls, in there. Scale tickets, in there. A clutch, in there. Guys, it's all in there. So you already know, you're already building in bad things that can happen, right? It's a fudge factor. So that way, you know, when I look at this number, when I know what my cost per mile is, my wear and tear is already in there. Other things are already built in. Everybody goes, oh, it's not that simple. The spreadsheet, if you're not really good with spreadsheets or math, the spreadsheet's not that simple. For $200, you can have somebody create a really solid spreadsheet. And then your life, your business, running your business seriously to make a profit becomes very simple. Then you can do really basic 3rd grade math, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but literally it's 3rd grade math with a number that you know has all your costs in, has a $60,000, $70,000 salary built in, whatever you want, put it in there. You know that when you are going to run that number of miles and you price it with your profit additional, all those costs are in there and it becomes really, really simple. Alex says, I have valid points, but There's many different variations for owner-operators to operate on. Think about it this way, guys. So we're a carrier. We have X number of trucks. We operate as an owner-operator. We just happen to operate. Let me make sure you look. Every one of our trucks has a different cost per mile, and the variation is significant. Our better drivers have costs per mile that are approaching 30 cents better than our poor drivers. So guys, no. I mean, yeah, we have costs, right, that you wouldn't. But to sit there and say that, well, I'm a single truck, so I don't need it, I should look at it differently, is absolutely ludicrous. Then you have a job, not a business. Period. It's irrelevant. We run cost per mile for every truck. We don't lump it all in together and say as a fleet our cost per mile is X. Fleet manager looks at a spreadsheet and says, this guy's cost per mile costs this amount of money. This guy does a better job of running slower, this, that, whatever all the variables are. He runs in a different region, whatever it is. We have rolling averages with very detailed numbers to the penny that says this is what the cost is. So when we book a load, we're good, right? We add the profit plus whatever else the market rate is, and we go from there. It just makes it so simple. And so for you guys to think that you're doing it simple by cost per day, you're factoring like 4 things or 8 things is just silly. Your cost is in there. All these arguments that people want to make, it's in there. It's like, what was that TV come up, Prego spaghetti sauce? It's in there, right? It's all in there. It's really simple. I mean, it is such a more simple, efficient, accurate way to run your business once you have the spreadsheet, once you track the numbers. Guys, pay for the spreadsheet if you don't know the math. It's that simple. It really is. I would challenge these guys that are on the fence, because the guys that are on that far kind of radical side of, oh no, it's cost per day is the way to go, whatever, you're not going to change their mind, right? They want to, I mean, they literally came in and argued the fact that they should take the less profitable run. All things were the same, all things were equal, the exact same run, or exact same location, all things were equal except for the rate and the weight. And they wanted to argue that they would take the less profitable run. Okay. I mean, literally, you can't talk to those people. And then they get really emotional and they start typing in caps and pounding on keyboards and saying things that are just stupid. All right? I mean, whatever. It really is simple. So if you don't have the skill set to do the formulas in Excel, you can pay for that. It is so cheap. And for the rates that you guys are making right now, I challenge those people that are on the fence of which way should I go. Instead of asking YouTubers, why don't you just go spend $200 with your accountant and have them create a cost per mile spreadsheet? Again, as John Hull mentioned the other night, find an accountant that knows this industry, have them create a spreadsheet that you can just plug in numbers and it calculates as you enter in new numbers. All right, I will, Shadow Wolf. And then guys, then you can make decisions that fast. You're not just guessing. It's not about per day. It's none of that stuff. Heath, I haven't seen that. I have had a few guys send me different spreadsheets and different links over the past week, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think any of them are any good. I just don't. I haven't seen any of them that I think are really good. Trust me, guys. If I saw a link to a spreadsheet that was online that was free, I would send it to. But I will, Heath. I've checked out every one so far. If I saw a link that I thought was absolutely good for you guys, I would post it in here and I would say, go check this out. Here, okay, Heath, I'll look at it. Go check it out. I would tell you guys, I would send you that way. You're absolutely right. A good accountant will do a lot for a business. And you were the one that gave me the idea for this topic, this video, and really this is the right time to have this discussion predicated on all these other guys that are coming up talking about cost per day. This is not the business, guys, to run at a high level. Software, if you want to run software, if you own a software company, you want to run a business at big 100,000 foot view, that's fine. Software margins are 80%. You want to get into technology hardware, margins are about 40%. You want to get into transportation, go look at, here's an example, go look at the mega carriers, the public ones. Look at what their profit margins are. Even with all the efficiencies of a mega carrier, their margins are still slim. Okay? It's not hard, it's really simple. And when you have the spreadsheet and you just plug in your numbers, right, for what your costs are, your fixed and your variable, right, your fixed are going to stay the same. The formula's going to add them up every week or every month, however your accountant sets it up. All you got to do is plug in your variable costs. It's real simple. Add a scale ticket. Here's 10 bucks. Add a reweigh. Here's a toll. Here's how much I spent in fuel. Your salary, 60, 70 grand. It's already loaded in there. So when you're booking your own load, when you're calling a broker, you know what your cost per mile is. It's $1.50, whatever it is, right? Pick a number. $1.50. How many miles is this? So you know at a minimum what it's going to cost you to run this. Outlaw, man, I appreciate your comments. First off, I want to say something to you, man. I don't know who I was having this conversation with the other night. What I said was I appreciated your comments because they were so well thought through. The other thing I mentioned was how professional your comments were. There was not a lot of emotion. There was no hatred. It was interesting, good dialogue, and I appreciate your comments. I really do. Now let me read your comment here. You're correct. You're supposed to know your cost. Didn't know so many trucking YouTubers did not know this. It's simple business. Well, Outlaw, I have had a few guys send me, I've watched five videos now, some of which were old in the past, some of which are new. And these aren't just YouTubers that are here for entertainment. Okay, I mean, look, I think we're all here for entertainment to some degree. But I think these are the guys that say that they are here to educate drivers. And so, you know, if that's where people are going to these sites to get information and they're being told cost per day, I'm here to tell you, if you are on the fence, right now you're making really good money, or you should, go get a spreadsheet from an accountant and tell them that you want this spreadsheet to roll automatically your numbers. So when you put in a number, it gives you an amended number. Good for you, Outlaw. Good for you. Run that spreadsheet. Run that spreadsheet for a couple months. Continue to do your business the way that you want it. If you're on the fence and you have been running cost per day, fine. Go get your spreadsheet, enter in the numbers, and see what you learn. Here's something else that is a killer for a trucking business. It's called deadhead. Briggs, knock it off. It's called deadhead. I can tell you, I can open our spreadsheet, and I can tell you what every one of our trucks, for every truck, I can tell you the cost per mile, I can tell you what percentage of deadhead they have. Deadhead, I'll tell you right now, is one of those things that will jump up and bite you, because you know, you might think, man, I'm not deadheading that much, because that's how we were. And look, this was back in the day when I was dispatching, and I feel bad for those drivers that I had to dispatch for. I apologize to them. But I thought I was doing a lot better job than I was. And I'm pretty good at running numbers. I thought I was doing a lot better job than I was. When we got in the spreadsheet and I realized what it was, holy cow. And so then I made a comment to the other fleet managers, hey, we've got to work on reducing our deadhead. Our deadhead went from 12.5% to 13% on average, down to 7%. Sometimes some trucks are 8%. If you're running 100,000 miles, do some really quick math. That's 8,000 miles of cost. Oh God, Charlie's in here. First driver. Yeah, I did. That's 8,000 miles of cost. It's 8,000 miles of revenue that you're not getting, but you're paying out the door as well. If you don't have a spreadsheet, you can't look at those numbers. A spreadsheet, guys, as I've said so many times, a story unfolds. And you're right, Bob, there are a ton of hidden costs that a spreadsheet will tell you that cost per day will never tell you. Again, if you're coming in late, I started this video by saying let's create a baseline. And the baseline is let's define a job and let's define a business. And the dictionary says a job is a piece of work, especially a specific task done as a part of a routine of one's occupation. And a business is defined as that which a person is principally and seriously concerned and or the sale of exchange the sale / exchange of goods and services in an attempt to make a profit. When you're talking about a job, it didn't have the word profit in there. That's the difference. The spreadsheet, guys, will show you your deadhead, or it should. Okay, it will show you how you can improve that. That alone, it will show you your fuel mileage. Right? You might think you're running X, but you might be running Y. There are so many things that a good spreadsheet should have. It literally will tell you a story. It will tell you how to be more profitable. It will tell you how to put more money in your checking account. It will tell you how to have more money for you and or your family or your maintenance account. All those sorts of things. So I don't know about Trucking Pro. I'll take a peek at it. Right? I don't know. Roger. I think it was Roger that asked that. Right? It does not matter if you have multiple trucks. That's an absolute BS excuse. Like I said, I don't care about your feelings. Unless you're an employee or somebody in my life that I love, I don't care about your feelings. I do care about you being successful. I do care about you being profitable. I wouldn't come on here and preach this so passionately if I thought cost per day was the right way to go. It's just not, guys. Can you get by with it? Yeah, like I said in one of those other videos, you might be in business for 20 years. How much money are you going to leave on the table in those 20 years? How much money would we have left on the table if we didn't track cost per mile and didn't see our deadhead was at 13–14%? That's huge deadhead, right? And to be able to almost cut that in half. So we literally cut in half the number of miles, or almost in half the number of miles that we were running without receiving pay for. It just tells you such a valuable story about your business, how you can stick more money in your pocket. Guys, I am not coming. Here's another thing. Here's a question to all the doubters. If I'm so wrong, why would I be suggesting that you go do something that's only going to cost you $200, but share with you how you can be so much more profitable in your business? I'm not making any money on this. This isn't about being, well, it is about being right or wrong, for sure. Because I think some of these guys that are telling you to do cost per day are absolutely so wrong. And one of the guys that I saw in the video today that somebody sent me, I've seen some of his videos and I like some of his content. And it's like, man, it shocked me to see his example of cost per day. It was so basic. There were so many things that were left out. And I just looked at that and said, man, if guys are paying attention to this, they are going down a really sketchy road. Let me answer a few questions and I'll let you guys run. Let me go way up. Thanks, Jennifer Martin. Appreciate that. It does come down to percentages. You're right. And the thing is, you're working on, you guys, here's the thing. And let me say this. For those guys that may be on the fence, that may be considering and actually go get a spreadsheet, you're going to need about 20,000 miles. Right, which isn't long. It's a month and a half, 2 months for some of you guys, or less for some of you guys. You need about 20,000 miles under your belt so that some of your numbers are relatively accurate. I had a conversation, was it 2 weeks ago, one night with a guy who told me they run their cost per mile, and their cost per mile is $2.15. I had another guy tell me that was in the $1.80s. Guys, those are really, really, I don't know how in the world you can be in business with those costs. I mean, we run really high-spec 780s, and I mean, our oldest trailer that we use, I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. We have some old trailers, but our 20 newest trailers, the oldest one's 2 years old, I think, 2.5 years old. So, I mean, we run new equipment. We run very high-spec 780s. We have all kinds of cost for G&A, right, which is fees, people's salaries, right, that aren't drivers. We have all kinds of costs that go into cost per mile that you guys don't have, and we're way below that. So again, all your wear and tear, all that stuff can be factored in. Maintenance, all that stuff is carved out. It's such a simple way to run your business. Outcast says never talk about my numbers. What I make is my business. I would agree. Yeah, and you guys have never once heard me discuss what our cost per mile is. I believe that's a competitive advantage. Yeah. So Outcast, that's my point. Yeah, I don't ever share and divulge our cost per mile. I believe that's a competitive advantage. It should be for you. And in these guys' case, it's not a competitive advantage. But again, what we talked about was it showed them where their costs were way out of line and where their business was getting killed. Without them tracking each line item, they wouldn't know where they were making pretty massive mistakes. Yeah, the dogs were up. See how much more peaceful it is now? We got rid of the troublemaker. Cost per mile is a big scary thing only because many folks, yes, you're right, Barb, that's the thing. It is scary and people don't know how to do it, so they want to take the simple way. Most of the things in life that are the simple way are not usually the best way. Sorry guys, my note, it's kind of, I'm allergic to everything, so I apologize. I'll check out some of these softwares that you guys are mentioning. Let's see a few more questions. Idling hours are very important. Man, it is, right? People ask why we don't have APUs in some of our 780s. Well, because we've ran the numbers. And by the time you run the numbers with current fuel price around that 250 mark, it's about a break even. Where the needle sways is for driver comfort, right? And so, like I said, all of our newer 80s, excuse me, newer 780s in the past couple of years have APUs. Each truck's financial profile is incorporated. You are correct, Red Dane. We have everything carved out by each individual driver because every driver performs differently. I don't argue that. I agree with those guys that say, oh, cost per day is different for us. Or how you run the truck is different. Yeah, it's different for every single driver, even within a company. Again, we have swings of 30 cents a mile. HC said he had a big expense. He didn't have to worry about fixing again. I mean, that's just, yeah, I know. I read that and I commented, that's just ludicrous. Yeah, Semper Fido, when guys are getting emotional, here's the thing. When people get emotional and they start screaming things, what that typically means is they have no more argument. They have no more facts. And this is what I'm here to sit there and tell anybody. You want to run your business on cost per day? Then let's talk about facts. What's your percentage of deadhead? I don't know. How do you calculate, whether or not it's best to take the tow away or not? I don't know. Right? What's your cost for maintenance? What do you spend on that a year? Well, I do track that. I can tell you that. Hang on a minute. Let me add up a bunch of numbers. Again, you can just go on and on and on. Mr. Stemples, you're right. Spreadsheet for the win. Stu, Stu says, I'm making a great case for full maintenance lease. Cost per mile is effective for it doesn't matter, right? If you own a 1995 truck or a full maintenance lease, or it doesn't matter. But again, that's for each one of you guys to figure out. I think taking a 40-hour class at your local CC in Excel, man, Red Dane, you know what? You don't have to do that, right? You can jump online and get those classes for free. You really, I mean, not for, I shouldn't say, yeah, you can. Guess where? YouTube. You can get some really basic skill sets on YouTube for free. You can go to any Best Buy and buy some software for free. QAL. Scott, do lease companies or companies you bonded to, do they give you spreadsheets? No, they don't. We have our own internal. And that's the thing, right, guys? People have asked me for our spreadsheet. One, it would be useless to you because it is massive. It is very complex. We have a lot of things that we track in there that you guys don't need to, right? So in our case, it is very complex. Yours doesn't have to be. Yours can be pretty simple. That's why, again, it's not going to cost much money for you guys to have somebody create. What's a good margin in my opinion? For trucking, I would say let's talk about pre the last 6 months, right? A good margin I would think is probably somewhere in that 15%, right? 15 to 20% I think is a good margin in transportation. So lately, that number is very different. Oh, Todd Clifton, OIDA does have a free spreadsheet and it's not good. I would not recommend it. Roger Carter, and I know I'm way behind. I know owner-operators that figure their profit from taxes. Let me finish the comment, and don't know the rest of the time. You're exactly right. That's my whole point. They act like I'm nuts when I tell them one of the load they pull puts them in the hole. That is one of the bigger arguments that is to be made about cost per day, is you don't know where. Again, I gave the example earlier in this video about a guy that's taking a run right now, and we're going to be 48 hours late on that. If I ran my life, my business on cost per day, and I had this big miss, and you have other misses, and that's the thing. My question is, how do you track what's a day? Okay, you're going to run your business on cost per day. What's a day? Is it 24 hours? Is it 9 to 5? Is it a 14-hour workday? Is it 11 hours? What's a day? Did you drive 1 hour? So you check that off as a day? What's a day? And so if you're going to track whatever you define as a day, anything outside of that changes your metrics drastically. It's not my opinion, guys. That's math. It's facts. Okay, if you don't understand that, that's fine. Just trust me on this. I'm not going to lie to you about it. It changes all your stuff drastically. So if you don't know where you stand until late in the year, that's a bad thing. Now, you can add it up weekly and whatever and hope that you're right. But again, when you run on cost per day and you get long loads here, if you get loaded, if you're factoring on a 2-hour load everywhere or 4-hour loads, and you get a couple of 6-hour or an 8-hour in your 70, guess what? You just imploded your business model. I appreciate that, Outlaw, and I have no doubt. Let's see, I've got a halfway decent spreadsheet, but yeah, and here's the thing, right? This is not the thing to go half-ass, and that's the whole point of this, right? Do you own a job or do you own a business? Don't go half-ass on your spreadsheet. Just find a really good transportation accountant. Pay them a few $100, and it might not even be a few $100, guys. Eastwood, you're correct. People do hear what they want to hear. Myself included, right? Look, my mind works probably different than most people. I'm a very evidence-based, fact-based kind of person. I don't care if it's politics or cost per mile and anything in between, right? Tell me your evidence, tell me your fact-based situation, and I'm very interested in that dialogue. You start giving me opinions, and you start talking in emotion, and all of a sudden I don't give you much credit. I don't. What I care about is facts. And again, that's how my mind works. And which is really good for this business. Trucker Brown's in the house. I'd be curious on what you have to say about this, Trucker Brown. I really would. Michael D. Sounds like a bird. Yeah, there are birds chirping. Briggs gets up in there and it ends bad. There are many hidden costs like Deadhead that are silent killers. Yeah, you're right, Barb. There are silent killers like Deadhead, like Idle. There are tons, and when you have a spreadsheet, here's the thing, guys. I say I made some smart aleck comment the other day about hashtag numbers don't lie. That's why you don't want to half-ass your spreadsheet. That's why you want your spreadsheet to be very detailed, because then those numbers don't lie. Okay, those numbers are going to tell you where you guys are great and where you guys suck. If your fuel mileage sucks, there's a couple things you can do, right? You can add things to your trailer, to your truck. You can slow down. You can close the gap between the trailer. You can monitor your tire pressure. There are things you can begin to do to not spend or waste so much money on big ticket items like fuel. You can cut your idle time. There's again, a story unfolds, guys. That's really that simple. Single-stranded or double helix accounting software. Just go to an accountant. That's what I'm saying. Orion owns several businesses. Not all in the transportation industry. Okay, well, do you track those businesses' profit and loss closely? I'm sure you do. I know your background, Orion, and I'm sure you do. All right, let me jump way down. A business can pay a company driver 11 hours for miles and 3 hours for detention and full 14. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Philip Klassen's in the house. What is an acceptable amount of idle for driver comfort? It depends, right? I don't know. Where are they at? I mean, that just depends, right? I mean, honestly, it just depends. Look, we had, on my other channel, I had an example where we had a driver that left our yard, and I believe they didn't shut the truck off. Was it for 9 or 13 days? It was one of those two, 9 or 13. Didn't shut the truck off. That's not true. They shut it off one time for like 15 minutes. That's not acceptable. Charlie, I'm small fry. He's the very first driver we hired. I climbed up in Charlie's truck one day when he was on the yard, and I said, "This is miserable, right? Idle the truck." He's like, "No," and he is psycho about fuel spend. But I made him idle the truck. I was like, "Dude, don't do this." There's fixed costs. There's variable costs. It's easy to track the fixed costs. You should know what those numbers are. Look, I can tell you on the different types of trucks that we run, I can tell you right now off the top of my head, almost to within probably $5 what each one of those costs are. Variable costs are different. They're very difficult to track. That's why when you put them in a spreadsheet and it automatically rolls out and spits out your cost per mile as it amends it real time, that's where the value is. So Wham's Pride, like I said, it just depends on time of year, where they're at, all kinds of things. Insurance, taxes, payments, truck, trailer, fixed cost. Yes, that's right. You're right. Those are fixed costs. And again, there's a lot of hidden costs, right? There really are. And I'll tell you guys this: there's a really good chance that you'll think of other costs to add into this. To have your accountant call your accountant or email them and say, "Hey, whatever, we need to add this." I typically just have a miscellaneous line, right, of cost. Right, so those little things that may or may not add up, just put a miscellaneous line. You can enter in the number, and you're good. Philip, I don't know what BS I was talking about. Free training on YouTube, free spreadsheet software available online, says Joe Harding. Joe Harding should know. He used to work for the IRS, guys. Heath, you're right. Math is not an option. You can pick up free 30-day codes via sponsorship, access for free learning videos. Guys, it's all out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. Again, this is just not one of those things to be cheap on. I am one of the most frugal people you will ever meet in your life. But there are certain things that I don't go cheap on, right? And this is one of those things not to go cheap on. It's just not. Mark Peterbilt says, also got to remember, past performance is no guarantee of future results. But it gives you solid info to make a decision. And Mark, I agree with you highly on that point. And I think that's one of the things that, by and large, here's how the cost per day guys start their conversation with themselves, with their business. Okay, let me look at last year's tax return. Let me look at how many days I ran last year. Okay, I ran whatever, right? 300 days last year. I want to do the same this year. And that's all well and good until you blow a turbo. And if you're not tracking the days that you ran, if you're just saying I need this much every day, some days you're going to exceed that. Some days you're not. What happens the third day if you don't track how much you exceeded it by and how much you lost it by? And even if you do track it, you're missing tons of other variables. Barb says, once you have a spreadsheet on your laptop, it will only take a few minutes a day to enter that. Yes, it will. That's why I said, guys, this is probably the best $250 you guys will ever spend unless you won lottery. It just makes your business so simple. It takes so much worry out of it. And that's another thing that you guys have to deal with every day is the stress, right? The stress of miles, the stress of four-wheelers, the stress of shippers, receivers, the stress of, can I make this month's mortgage or car payment? Why guess? Think how much stress it will eliminate when you can see right there, real time, where you're at, profit and loss, any day of the year. You will sleep so much better when you know where you're at, right? And if you're not in a good situation, then you know what? Guess what? Now I don't have to worry about my costs or cost per day and all this. Now I can focus on the next layer of being a better businessman and start looking at lanes and rates and start focusing on load boards and truck ratios and those sorts of things, right? You don't have to worry about a lot of the other trivial stuff because it's all contained in the spreadsheet. Let's see. Now's the moment to know how much your cost per day is to make sure that these are already paid. If you can make miles, you need to add them. What about profit gauges by Let's Truck? Puts all your numbers in, gives you your CP. So quickly. So again, I have seen a fair number of spreadsheets and some software and I have not seen any that I think are all that good. Most of them, you throw in a number and it gives. Here's the thing. Let me talk about this for a minute. Let me spend just a few minutes on the spreadsheet. A lot of these spreadsheets are a spreadsheet that you can go in and you can throw all your numbers in, and it's going to spit out a cost per mile today, right? If everything is accurate and you've tracked every expense, it's going to spit out a number, and you're going to say, okay, cool, my truck or my cost per mile is whatever, $1.50, right? Today. What you want is a spreadsheet that you can enter in every day's run that you take for the entire year. And your cost per mile is going to do this, right? It's going to do that. Different times of the year it's going to go up. Sometimes of the year it's going to go down. How many miles you run. There's a million factors that play into the numerator and the denominator and how it's going to divide it out. Again, you don't have to worry about that because it's going to be hidden in the formulas. All you have to worry about is entering in the accurate numbers. But what you want is a spreadsheet that rolls constantly and updates information in real time, not one that you can just put in numbers and it just gives you the number for today and you can't amend it, right? I mean, look, at the end of the year, our spreadsheets for each driver, right? We have pages and rows and rows and rows. We track every run. Let me tell you something else that the spreadsheet does. We put in every broker. We put in the rate per mile that we received. So I can sit there and say, with a click of a button, if I want to reach out to brokers where I got really exceptional rates at, all I got to do is click one button. It sorts it by the highest rates per mile. Again, rate per mile, what I was paid per mile. And I can look over and say, well, guess what? This was XYZ broker, right? And I hauled a few loads for those guys. So guess what? They tend to have better paying freight than whoever else. There's, again, a story unfolds. It's like magic, truthfully, guys. It's like magic. But when you don't know, when you run in this very vague, 100,000 foot view stuff, you can't do that stuff. Weather affects profitability of the loads a lot, right? Be it wind, be it the miles per hour, be it the temperature, right? I mean, and we've talked about all those kinds of things. But it does. It has an impact. Okay, so this is a great question. Philip asks a great question. How can you make a cost per mile spreadsheet if you don't know how many miles you're going to run? So here's the thing, guys. When you do a cost per day, that's my point. They have no clue how many miles they're going to run. They're guessing. When you do a cost per mile spreadsheet, Philip, that's what I said. You want a spreadsheet that tracks every single run every day. All you have to do is put in, it takes less than 4 minutes to enter in the variables, the receipts, the numbers for each line item. Okay, so you're going to type in the broker, you're going to type in the load number, you're going to type in, I'm just going off of ours. The date, the broker, the load number, where it picked, where it dropped, right? All these sorts of things. And again, as we drive those miles, deadhead included, it tracks every single mile. Okay, so that's why I said earlier in this video, once you get to about 15 or 20,000 miles, you're gonna have a really accurate view of what your cost per mile is. So that's my point, is it tracks it real time, Philip. You don't have to guess because you're entering in those numbers. It takes less than 4 minutes, but it's literally to the penny. For a new owner operator, it's hard. They don't have any references. I agree, man, and that's my point. I'm not trying to be a jerk and calling these other guys out. I'm just telling you, if they, look, I'll say it this way. What's that adage, right? If I only knew then what I know now. And I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than them. I'm just saying we have looked at that. We've done things differently. And I suspect if they ran cost per mile and they had access to our spreadsheet or a spreadsheet, they would have that same aha moment of, gosh, man, if I only knew then what I know now. And I'm not suggesting you go drop $1,000 or $5,000. I'm suggesting you go drop $100 or $200, and you will have your own aha moment every single day. Instead of watching me on YouTube, you'll be looking at your deadhead. You'll be looking at your fuel cost. You'll be looking at things that's going to make you more successful. All right, sorry about that. I had a quick phone call. Yes, we did create our spreadsheet in-house. Yes, we did. And again, that's why I think it's best to do it with your own accountant. Because when you buy something online, swim in it, don't swallow it. When you go to an accountant, you can make changes, you can amend things, right? With your accountant. When you buy this software from somebody else, like somebody else was mentioning up in this earlier feed, 150 bucks. When you go and spend that 150 bucks for some software online, again, I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm just saying, I can't call that company up and say, hey, can you add this line item? Can we tweak this for my business, for your business? You can't do that. Whereas if you spend that money with your accountant, they're a phone call away or an email away. Hey, can we add this and then resend me the spreadsheet? Cool, done. So to me, that's where the value is. And that's the value in our spreadsheet, right? We can amend that on the fly. Shadow Wolf, here's the thing, man. They go and they get in the pool. They can go shake anywhere, but they'll come like right here next to me and shake. Yeah, Jennifer and Martin makes a good point, right? I mean, it makes doing taxes really, really easy. One thing you can't add is someone running into you or your trailer maintenance. You cannot, but guess what you can add, Wesley? In your cost per mile, before you, let's assume that I get my cost per mile today. I got my spreadsheet back from my accountant. I'm all excited. He's got my fixed costs in there. All I got to do is run my variable costs, and he has this little column for maintenance or repair or miscellaneous. I can throw in some money for somebody running into you or you running into a pole. I can throw in a deductible for my insurance. I can throw in time off. Right? Meaning I can add revenue, or excuse me, I can add cost in there of me being down. So then when I see my cost per mile and then I try to run my business on a higher inflated number, guess what I can do? I know that I've got that money built in, so when something bad does happen, I've CYA, I've covered my ass, right? Because I've been running for the past 6 or 7 months with an slightly inflated number because I'm kind of, you know, I'm adding that to the spreadsheet when something happens. Guess what? If it doesn't happen that year, you just, you know, you got an extra 1,000 or 3,000, whatever number you put in there. You can do it from day one. Again, guys, I'm telling you, it's so simple. It's so simple. So you can factor that in, Wesley. You absolutely can. Heath says, from Waxenwood, from my understanding, Ray from Fogline will take requests for additions on the Trucking Pro software. All right, you know what? I'm going to call Ray. I'm going to call Ray. How long do you see rates staying good, Brian? I don't know. I could sit here and speculate and talk about all the variables, but the short answer is I don't know, and nobody does. Or, yeah, I don't really think anybody does. Yes, Philip. Here's another thing. Your $250 is cost deductible. Oh, freaking little dog. Yeah, that's funny. Cost per day for the win. So your $250 is, depending on your tax rate, it's going to cost you a whole lot less. Well, not a whole lot, but it'll end up being 150 bucks or something. Charles, how are you? Guys, I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. To go and create the spreadsheet can be relatively complex. I would suggest a lot of guys don't have that. A lot of drivers don't have the skill set. Again, it's fine. It's a couple $100, but for a couple $100, you can have such a detailed visibility to your business that you cannot get from these guys. I mean, I fire back a few comments to these guys that are cost per day proponents. And all of a sudden they start pounding keyboards and typing in caps because they're out of facts, right? They don't have any evidence. So again, you start asking just a couple of questions, then all of a sudden it's all caps, right? That's not how you want to run your business. If somebody asks you, I mean, here's the thing. Think about this. My title, whatever, on here, Trucking Exec. if you guys came on here and asked me what my percentage of deadhead was, and I said I don't know, well, which is a better way to go, to take the tollway or not? I don't know. How much credibility would I have if I didn't have those answers? If I didn't have those answers, I would have zero credibility. So for those that get all emotional and frustrated with me, it's because I don't see much credibility with you. When I ask those questions and you can't answer them, again, getting back to the first couple of minutes of this video, what's the definition of a job and what's the definition of a business? You don't strike me as someone that I want to have a business conversation with. I don't think you're a business person. I think you have a job. You just happen to also have all the risk. Again, I don't have any credibility if I don't know those numbers. So why would I give you credibility? You don't deserve it. I wouldn't deserve any credibility if I didn't have those numbers. But again, a story unfolds, and when you know all those numbers, you talk about sleeping well at night. You know exactly where you're at. You know exactly what you got to do. You know exactly how many miles you need to run to make X dollars, because you know it's right there. No, Jim, I'm not. I won't sell my spreadsheet. I've had many people ask. I've had people offer to pay for it. No, I'm not making any money. I've never. I don't ask people for a super chat. I'm not asking for anything. In fact, what I'm telling you to do is to go spend the money with your accountant or find a transportation accountant. I don't want any of your money. I'm not selling anything. I'm telling you to go be better at your business. Spend a couple $100. It's going to help you have a good relationship with your accountant anyways. It's going to help your accountant relative to taxes. You're going to be able to have dialogue with an accountant. They can help you determine when maybe you should upgrade assets, all those sorts of things, because they have all the numbers. It makes your life a lot easier. It makes their life a lot easier. I would even argue that the amount of time that your accountant would need to run your taxes, if you have one, would be significantly decreased when you have this information. So no, I'm not trying to sell you anything, other than I guess I'm trying to sell you on the idea of to run your business like a business, not like a job. Roger Carter says, anytime I have less than $5,000 in the bank, I raise maintenance 15 cents. Right. I mean, Roger, it just gives you such a detailed perspective. It makes your business so simple. Yeah, Mr. Stemples, send it over. TheTruckingExec@gmail.com. I think it's in the description box, I think. Will ELD affect owner-operators more than smaller fleets? My quick off-the-cuff answer is no. I think smaller fleets and owner-operators will be impacted similarly, especially if those small fleets are running paper, like many owner-operators, so I think they'll have a similar impact. Shadow Wolf says, sun's going down here. Vampire's getting ready to make some green. Nailed it. 6 months the same, question mark, 3 months, I'm not sure. Be more specific. I'm not sure what you're asking. Yes, you will have to do your taxes quarterly. Well, yes, you would. QAL says Tesco spent $62 million in the 90s to update their IT software for loads and route planning. It saved the company $300 million the following year. I could talk to you guys about tons of situations like that, QAL, where we have gone in and sold somebody a technology or software. I can tell you right now, one of my tech companies, we went in and it was software. It was in wicked high margin. We priced it close to, near $100 million, and again at insane profits. But that company, multi-billion-dollar company, said that it would save them $100 million a year. That's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. In this case, guys, I'm telling you, cost per mile will save you money. It just will. Typical driver's expertise is the driving part of the job. I agree, Barb. She goes on to say, if you are a lease or owner op, you will need the expertise of the accountant for the numbers end of it. Yes, you will. And again, that's just smart business. right? If you're not an accountant, if you're not strong in spreadsheets, I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to be, right? Once you get the spreadsheet, all you have to do is enter in your numbers. I got my fuel receipt. I spent $458.12. Cool, 458.12. Pretty simple stuff. Looking to grow and employ people, pros and cons of a 1099 versus W-2. Any thoughts? Yes, I do have some thoughts on that. Probably a different video. This one's getting long, so we'll save that for another one. Jim, I'm telling you, your $250 or whatever it's going to cost you, it's a business expense, one, and it will pay for itself. I would be willing to guarantee you it will pay for itself in the first month. Bottom line is know your cost. Guys, that's it. I'll let you go. This has been long. Do you own a job or do you own a business? And I'm not here to be disrespectful. I'm just going to tell you, if you're not running cost per mile and you're running at cost per day, more likely than not, you own a job, not a business. Just my opinion from this side of the steering wheel. As always, I'm going to change my mantra. If you guys are making miles, stay safe. I hope you're making profitable miles, and I hope you know how to figure that. Guys, stay safe for real. Take care. See ya.